Welcome to this episode of the Customer-Centric Retailing Podcast. This is Anil Patel, founder and CEO of Hotwise Commerce. In this podcast, we discuss e-commerce, omnichannel technology, pre-order management, brick-and-mortar operations, retail culture, innovation, and how all these elements come together to create customer-centric retailing. Join us to hear the brightest minds in the retail industry share their experiences and thoughts on the most relevant topics today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Customer-Centric Retailing Podcast. Today, we have really special guest. I've been trying to get him to come on our podcast, but he's busy. Darko Tushev, thank you very much. You are a busy man. Thank you very much for coming in and being our guest at this podcast. I am excited. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. How are you doing today?
You are so kind, Anil. You know what? My goal is when I come home, everybody to be as excited as you are right now. Everybody like, hey, Darko's home. But thank you so much for your kind words. I am also very happy to be here. I'm very glad we're having this conversation because I think we have so much in common, and we're both passionate about the same things, like customer-centric approach, order management system. So I think me and you are going to have really a lot of fun while filming this.
Awesome, man. You have a lot on your shoulders. Product manager at Gap, man, that's like a big thing. I can only dream of it, right? So I'm really interested in it, like all this magic. Where did you learn all this? What's your journey? How you started, learned all this magic that got you here to this capable position, being responsible product manager for such a critical piece of business for such a big business unit.
Well, yes, Gap is awesome. I'm not going to disagree with that. But my journey is very unconventional when it comes to product management because I would say 80% of the product managers come from an engineering background. My background is, are you ready for this? Corporate
Yep.
law. I was a lawyer before I became a product manager. Obviously, I have an accent, so I was a lawyer in Europe. And I came to the US for a business degree. And frankly, I fell in love with the American culture, American obsession of improvement. And while I was taking my MBA, everybody were talking about omnichannel this, omnichannel that. And I was like, oh my God, that's such a cool world. Word omnichannel. And I started researching and I discovered product as a role. I didn't even know things like that existed. So I made it my goal to become a product manager. And while researching that, I was like, what is the most crucial piece of retail? It turned out to be the order management system. Hence, I made it my goal to be a product manager specifically in this space. So I did a couple of internships in marketing and business. I work as a business analyst, as an omnichannel analyst, and finally at Gap owning the order management system. And it's been quite the journey. Super excited, very happy about it. Also, another thing that I want to mention, and you're going to find this fascinating, Gap is the largest specialty retailer in the US, and it's only the second retailer that have a home-built OMS.
Wow.
And I know you're going to have questions around that, but we're very proud of it. We think we did a really good job, especially because we are considered, I think, 4 years in a row, leaders in promising and fulfillment. So we're executing at a very high level.
Awesome, man. This is really good. Starting you college education and then working as a lawyer and then taking a business degree, but then again going into product management. That's like really quite so many turns in your career. And then I like what you said that you set the goal and hey, this is my destination. So now I'm going to navigate. So that's interesting that you wanted to be product manager and omni-channel, and then you found your way to this role. This is amazing, actually. And for sure, I'm a big fan of Gap. In fact, earlier this year, like I think a month or two ago, I was in New York, and I was at one of those stores, and actually I did I was so happy with that transaction that my buying experience, I took a photo with the associate and sent that photo to Aruna because I know her. And so I sent her the photo that, hey, I like it. You guys do a really good job. So I know you have really, really good control over the technology, inventory, promising, and then delivering on the promise. It's a big thing. It's not easy to achieve. And I'm in the same space, and I know it is hard.
It is, but I am blessed to have a really great technical team. My technical partners, my engineers have been in this space for 20, 30 years. And you know what? It's like someone blessed me with the best technical team. I know you're gonna say that for your technical team, but it's been a privilege supporting them. And that's one of the when people ask me what makes why you guys so good at what you do, I think it's because technology and business work hand in hand with the same goal. And that's and they are also customer obsessed like me, which is and they're engineers. And I can understand because I'm not coming from the engineering background, but they come from an engineering background but know everything about the customer, and that makes them even better engineers. And I'm really happy to have them. Also, next time when you're in New York, you gotta text me so we can have this conversation in person.
Yes, yes, I will be there and I will message you and then we should have this conversation. Yes, yep, yep. And in fact, coming back to your say what you said, that having a great team, it's important. And it's really, really I know that part from my own experience building this whole company on order management system, startup, like bootstrap, every penny counts, right? And in that, it's important that everybody in your team is aligned and they are on board with the vision. And so everybody is talking, communication is clear, and we are going marching towards the common goal. It's very important. So I can really understand the effort and diligence that goes into having everybody on board with the vision. So I really have, so much appreciation for what you are doing there because, it's like coding is one thing, but getting everybody to agree on the vision is important and getting them to, back up that vision. So your leadership team and the team that works on this whole engineering, thank you very much for doing such a good job. That makes our shopping experience fantastic.
Ah, you're so kind. Well, you know what? I follow you on LinkedIn, and every time you post, I can relate to that. I can relate to that because you always start from the customer, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing because I know how difficult it is to start from the scratch. We're doing a great job, but we already have an established market. So I am building for my brands. I build a feature. If they don't use it, that's okay. I'll scrape it. I'll build a new feature. But for you, it's much more difficult because you are building something. You have to find someone to use it. So
Yes.
we are both on the different on the different side of the same coin. So
Mm-hmm.
both of our jobs are really difficult, and but we understand each other really well because we have the same goal, and that customer is always right. And that's why me and you, I think, are on the same page.
Yes, yes, that's true. Definitely because we all are experiencing retail firsthand because we go shopping. But at the same time, in our company, what we've done is our engineers, like you said, your engineers really understand the business well. They can talk to the business people and understand them. They can empathize with them. So that is important actually. If engineers live in their own isolation in their own world and don't really get into the actual users community and learn about them, it's hard to build product that users will appreciate or will like it. So I think what you said, it's important that engineers have to know the product, have to know the business so well to build the right kind of product. And in fact, what we do is we make sure our engineering team gets really good training on business processes, data model, and then almost every engineer in our company spends enough time on client calls. They listen to them. They are on the meeting. Maybe they don't speak up much, but they are there listening firsthand on the phone calls. And then they are also spend significant amount of time, enough amount of time on working with the tickets, the issues reported from customers, all the customer support requests. They spend enough time there so they know exactly what my customer is experiencing, how I help them, how we resolve the issue, so they can go back in the product and actually fix it properly.
That's, you know what? You are doing a fantastic job there. Because in my previous life, before Gap, I was implementing an OMS from a different company. And every time there was a bug, I had to talk to the business manager who was representing the company, and he had to talk to the engineers, and they had need to talk to the support team. And even the smallest bug, it took at least a month, like 2 sprints to close it. And it cost us so much. So I think that overall our industry is getting better in a way that we understand how important it is to keep the smart people, the engineers, uh, informed on the business problems on the business side. Because when it comes down to what is the most important thing is you can have a functional system, you can have a working system. If your customer is not happy with it, you don't have anything. Your customers view of you, it's your reality. You may have the best system ever. If the customer doesn't know that, or if the customer is not aware of it, you have nothing. So you keeping the engineers involved, learning about the business, and then delivering together with your business team, it's what a really great CEOs or managers do. So bravo to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll pass on this message to engineers so they know they are doing the right thing.
You all guys are doing the right thing. I can't wait
Awesome.
to see what's next for you. You know, as I said, I've been following you on LinkedIn. I think you guys are doing a great job. I also hope that you're gonna expand maybe in the future, maybe work more with returns. I think that space is coming pretty big. So keep me updated.
Yes, yes, for sure. Definitely, right now we are focused on order management, but definitely we want to expand our capabilities into return because we are doing certain amount. We are doing helping the reverse logistics using APIs. We are not getting too much into those details, but we are still doing something. So we are getting just started with that. But I want to talk to you more about returns. I think there's so much to talk to you that maybe we'll do like a season of podcast. Few different topics to discuss, right? So,
Yeah,
like the OMS by itself is so big, right? It's such a wide space, and there's so much to have conversation on. And then on top of it, let's put the omni-channel stories that we are getting every day. Story gets even more complicated. Back in the day, it was like you place an order in the one retail store and the other store might ship it to your home. So there was like send sale or endless aisle, whatever you want to call it, used to be the big one for the retailers. Other than that, buy online, pick up in store did not exist like 10, 15 years ago. All of a sudden, when people started doing all these different things, every day new stuff comes up, like all these TikTok comes in, then all these things channels are coming in. So what I'm trying to get to is like every day the omni-channel itself is getting more complicated. New channels and new ways of doing businesses are coming in. But what it means is that OMS has to be really strong at its core, really strong. And then scalability is the big one. The first thing is like, you have to be able to support all these scenarios, but then also means so much scalability has to be taken care of because it's not like simple process. Take the data, store it, and then give it to someone else. There's
yep,
so much of processing going on. So I
yep,
want to really talk to you about like scalability first, and then we'll go one step further and like get deeper into other topics. But like in OMS space, let's talk about scalability as an issue. What do you see about it? Tell us more in your experience,
sure,
issues we face with because of scalability problems, and then how to resolve them. Some ideas on that.
sure. So that I want to start with omni-channel, And I'll tell you, this is my opinion, and if I'm wrong, you call me out. But the word itself, omnichannel, it's really overly used now. And I'll tell you why I think that. I think what we call omnichannel today is just normal business. You know, it's like you want to do ship from store, you want to do BOPIS, you want to do pickup in store. Those capabilities in the modern world are no longer competitive advantage. So you cannot say, hey, I want to be an omni-channel retailer. You have to have them. That's the new table stakes. So it's no longer a question if you want to have them. You need to have them. So we will have to find a different word to explain this, because omni-channel, it just means, hey, you're doing your job. You are providing customers with multiple way to fulfill their order. And that's why I think the adaptation, it used to be only the top 1%ers of retailers can afford to have BOPIS and BOSS. But with all the with the companies like yours and some other players who are allowing customers to experience this, people don't really have an excuse not to have them anymore. So that's the first thing. That's where I want to start it. The second thing is we have to start with why. We have to start with why. And when it comes to scalability, we have to talk about the size of a business. It's not the same. So I have a really good friend, and he has businesses on the boardwalk. He has 4 ice cream stores, and he asked me, I want to do BOPIS. And I told him, no, you don't. You don't want to do BOPIS because it's not that. He was like, what do you think, the ice cream's gonna melt by the time someone came to pick it up? I said, no, because my favorite thing when I go to an ice cream shop is when I stand in front of that window and when I see that employee taking that big scoop and putting it into the cone. That's part of the journey. I don't want to change the journey. I want to look while you're scooping my ice cream because I'm paying for fresh ice cream. So we have to start with why. Why do you want to have focus? Do you really need it? It's great to have it, but does it fit your business model? So when it comes to retail, when it comes to fashion, when it comes to that part of the story, yes, you need to have it. But then you ask, to what degree? You have a furniture store. Do you Maybe the question is not should you ship from that store, but maybe the question is, should you turn that store into a showroom and only ship from a DC? Because it's a nightmare to ship a big couch from a store. You know how much it's gonna cost you? So when it comes to scalability, these are all things we have to consider. We always have to ask why. The second thing, you made a really good point. Things are changing so fast. Things are moving so fast. So imagine, do you think, let me ask you something. Do you think BOPIS will be so um, famous or so relevant if there was no pandemic? The adaptation will happen so fast?
No,
No.
people.
Me too.
Yeah, people didn't even know what it even means, and they didn't have any idea that they need it or not.
Yes, I agree. So the way you scale that solution, people were so fast there was a fear of missing out. And of course, it was important for everybody to get on board because it was survive or die. Like you will have to like implement something to get something out of the store. But in the same time, there were concept of dark stores. Do you remember that concept where
Yep.
when we close the stores, we will have to ship from the store?
Yes.
So how you scale all that up? For a larger corporations, it's pretty easy for us. So for Gap, for Walmart, for Target, it's really easy because you we have the money, we have the capacity, but how do a mid-sized business scales that? How do a smaller business scales that? And they do it by onboarding smart OMS providers. So I can talk about you. I know a couple of other order managements out there that are really good, that are really easy to implement, that are very flexible. I know your APIs are very flexible. So the way you scale is by offer flexibility. And what I mean by that, if it doesn't work, you change. you improve, you iterate. You don't want to get stuck with a monolith that takes 6 months to implement and then change it. So flexibility, scalability go hand in hand with flexibility. Was that a really long answer? I'm sorry if it was.
Well, the topics we are discussing are not short ones. So answer will be if there. So I appreciate you giving us all those details. All that background is important, and particularly what I missed out in the question, you covered in the answer. Scalability is like a very vague, abstract term. What does it even mean? Is the question. So that's where I want to really thank you for starting like, hey, scalability for what? And what kind of scalability are we looking for? So I like that. So answer you gave was really good. It was really helpful. Thank you very much. Yeah. So and then when we get all these APIs, definitely with the APIs it is possible to scale the business in the sense like new workflows come up. You start working with those APIs and you can quickly come up with new workflows to support new ways of buying or fulfilling orders. So
Yes.
APIs are important, and these days if you didn't have APIs properly defined, it's just simply impossible to work. So I cannot imagine any OMS that like 20 years ago existed like with everything like all the UI and everything into one big zip file or deployment installation CD. I mean that's like hard.
Yes.
Can't
So,
happen then.
so another one of the things that I am trying to do better is be very careful when I communicate with business engagement. So when I communicate with business stakeholders, a lot of them would not understand if I say headless commerce or if I say composable commerce. So if you say composable commerce, it sounds pretty scary to be honest. And English is not my first language. So composable to me meant that it's gonna die off in the ground. Like composable, it needs to compose. And I'm trying not to use those words like headless APIs, composable commerce. So when I try to explain this to business, this is what I tell them. We need the whole idea behind having being composable and headless. It's really about being flexible, having what you want when you want it at a low cost. And the whole industry is moving away from the monoliths, and it's a huge win not just for the company, but it's a win for the environment. It's win for everybody. And I really like what you said about the APIs there. I just don't use the word. I don't use the word because then I'll have to explain API, what does it mean? And I try to keep it, hey, we need to stay flexible, because if we go back to the nature of scalability, the traditional sense of scalability is getting ready for peak. But what we need to understand is that each business has different peak. I'll give you an example. I used to work for Spirit Halloween. Spirit Halloween peak is not necessarily the same peak for Gap. Peak is 3 weeks before Halloween. So
Yes.
for me, scalability means how fast you can deliver to your customer what they desperately need. Maybe they don't know that they're needed, but they do need it. So how fast are you able to scale up your apps, your microservices to make that customer happy? Because the goal is not to make a sale. The goal is to make a customer. Because if you make a sale and it's a bad experience, yes, you make a sale, you lost a customer. So making customers versus making sale is the big win in retail.
Yes, yes, makes sense. And that's where, the whole experiences and having this technology, all the tools that you get on your computer, on iPad, on your phone for your associates are important because then associates can spend more time with the customer, help them buy what they want from the store. So it's important. Otherwise, like I have like 2 years ago or something. Once I went to one of those major outdoor retailers. I did actually write it up in somewhere, and it was hard. They had all the technology in the store. They had iPad with all the things they need, but the associates are not using it.
Yep.
And so what you're saying is like because the solution is not friendly, because the solution is not designed to work with the users, that's why users are not using it. Otherwise, who would not want a new tool to be more productive? Who wants to work harder? No, everybody wants to work smarter and get more done with the less effort. So
Exactly.
that's where being customer aware, being user aware is super important when you're building the software. So, and then that brings back to that original thing that you said. Your engineers, your product team is very well aware of how business operates, what customer wants. So, it all comes down together to that. And then with the whole headless and composable approach, we can put together new experiences fast to keep the productivity high for our people in the stores or online, and then combine that with the peak. So when there's a foot traffic in the store, our associates can do more in less time. That way they can engage with more customers in the store. Exactly. So that way you can keep the customer, not lose the customer.
Isn't that so? One of the biggest shocks I've had is this is maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Uh, I went to consult for a small business, and they wanted to implement BOPIS. And the way the senior leader was referring was real customers and online customers. Do you see where the problem is? So he had I mean he what he really wanted to do is protect the store inventory for the walk-in customers, but he was referring them as real customers, and these other guys, this online customers. And the reason why that is happening is because people are working in silos. Because you have
Yes.
one team that's responsible for the store, a second team that's responsible for online sales, and it's a little competition, and they don't work together. And I am really blessed at Gap that's not the case, because we share the goals. And but for I would say for maybe 80% of the industry right now, that is the case, and that's why there is always this. And I'm sure you have been in a lot of conversation where people are like, I don't want to ship from store, it's taking my inventory from the store, and this. And that's a really tough conversation that can only be addressed by leadership, because you can have the best possible software, you can have that functionality, you can sell them that functionality. If they don't find a way to distribute credit between the store and online, it's not going to work.
Yeah, so that should bring that brings me to this new topic. Like you said, the stores cannot work or the business cannot work in silos. Online cannot be a unit by itself, and retail location cannot be a unit by itself. They
Mhm.
have to work together. Means they have to work like a one organization. Tell me about your experiences. How is Gap, or how are you able to bring that into your company, your group, and make such impactful operation, create that kind of an operation where everybody comes together, and then technology helping them to achieve those goals, where online customers walking in the store and the store's real customers walking in the store, but both have equal rights over the inventory in the store.
It's a really good question. And in my experience, it always starts with leadership. So it's really how it's set up at the highest level. It needs to come from the executives, and everybody in the company needs to know that it doesn't really matter what store sales are or what online sales are. If the end of the day customer is not happy, if they went to a store to pick up their order, the software worked great, but the store associate had an attitude, that customer is not coming back. So there's so many moving pieces into doing this great, but it only works when everybody shares the same vision. So at Gap here, I think why is it working is because leadership has given us the freedom as product people to figure it out The only requirement is customer has to be happy. So customer being happy is more important than making that sale or making bottom line on that sale. And this ties pretty well with our conversation on returns, because this is why you have to handle returns, even cancellations. You have to handle cancellation graciously. If you have to cancel someone something, you better make sure that customer is happy and he'll come back. And that has the tone has to come from leadership. The execution has to come from each individual, from the store associates to the product manager to the person in the DC who's packaging the packet. So that's why you want leaders with customer-centric approach. And
Yeah.
and I know you are one of them, so I'm not gonna tell you that to you, but it's more for our listeners.
That's true. Definitely, it is important that business have to focus on customer, and then as a part of the business, putting together that business unit, you take care of organizing the team, tools for them, and the products, the items that you're selling, the inventory, and everything. But that also means that there's a lot of complexity of systems. You have this ERP, you have warehouse management system, you have point of sale system, OMS, online, and you could have various sales channels. So there's a lot of these systems within that your ecosystem of technology. So that also means that there's a challenge you have to deal with, which is integrations. So I mean, that's where back in the day, like 20 years ago, life used to be much easier. Now it's getting complicated, and every year it gets even more complicated because of those new systems coming into play. And that means new integrations coming into play. And it's
It
like to the power n, complexity increases.
Yes, but so I will play a devil's advocate here. Is it getting more complex because of the new systems, or is it getting more complex because we're setting up customer expectations? So
Mm-hmm.
it starts with the customer. It starts with the customer expecting now something to be delivered within 2 hours. 20 years ago, you delivered within 2 weeks. You're golden. You're great. But competition has expanded the way customer is expecting more and more and more, and it's really complex now. I agree with you 100%. I think the building block of everything that we talk about is inventory visibility. So you have to know at all times how much do you have, where it is, and how fast you can ship it to the customer or give it to them. So that's the first building block. But in the same time, customer expectations are growing so fast that I am not sure we can keep it up. So we have to, at some point, we have to ask ourselves as an industry, what we are doing, is it healthy? Is it good for everybody? I'll give you an example because me and you love talking about returns. There is a new phenomenon in returns. It's called bracketing. Bracketing means when customers are ordering a lot of things at the same time, knowingly that they're only gonna keep two of them. And I see it all around me. I'll say that's how my sister shops, that's how my friends shop. So as a retailer, you can do a really good job or having the right sizes, having the right pictures, setting up everything correctly on the front end, delivering everything great at the back end. But the customer behavior is set up in that way that the customer will purchase 10 items, will order 10 items, will only keep two. What that means is, from a sustainability standpoint, it's horrifying for the planet. So yes, customer expectations are growing. Technology allow us to do that, but is it the right thing to do? That's the question. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I remember which was that Zappos, right? Zappos started that culture. Yeah. So definitely, that was the culture that started like what 10, 15 years ago, and then it has only grown.
Yep.
But then, we have to see it from the other point of view that when you're buying online, shopping online, there are products that, let's say I want to get something, but it's not available at the local store. if the fashion brand I want to shop at but does not have location in my city, right? That's a big problem because what happens now is that I want to buy a product, but I cannot try it out. I want to try a few things before I make a final decision, final purchase, right? So this is the other reason why customers buy more. That bracketing happens because they want to try it out. Now, let's say retailers open more locations.
Mhm.
I know it's again, cost benefit analysis. You have to do everything is trade offs in life. But then what we need to do is provide customer with the opportunity where they can come in the store, work with the associates, get necessary help, make that decision, try out what they want, and then buy. When that happens, you sell and there is very less returns. So I would say this whole culture has been promoted by digital first companies who think that, and maybe they are like, all this new culture of like, low end products, like produce at low cost,
Passion.
invest in your, yeah, supply chain. You just optimize your supply chain, copy others design, make them in bulk, get them
Mhm.
to the store, sell them for $10, and then
Mhm.
everything comes back, put it in the dump, make more. I mean, like, that's the other culture that companies are adding and training customers for all this wastage.
Mhm.
So it's like a mixed responsibility. One, customer does not shop for stupid no reason. Your sister who shops like orders 10 is not because most of the time it's because she wants to try and keep the two, and like eight she wants to return. And
Mhm.
returning is not an easy process. Nobody likes it. I don't like it, and I don't think anybody in my family likes it because it's a process. Like, you have to pack it up and take it to the drop location or parcel it back, and you don't know when you're going to get your money. All this complexity comes with the return. So, one, I think retailers have to open more stores. There's no alternate to that. You cannot be digital first and only digital for life, right? So it starts there. Second thing is, don't make those cheap products, man. Like, come on. At least we need to uplift and get our society to accept the fact that you cannot produce anything meaningful and sell it for $10.
How do we change that? I mean, how do we change that? Because I agree with 99% of what you said, and I'll tell you something. It has to start with culture. And
Yes, yes.
and what I have seen, and it makes me really happy, the youngest generation, it seems that they don't get everything right. The Gen Z, there are a lot of things that I disagree with them, but with the aspect of sustainability, I do agree with them in a big way that we are leaving this planet to them. And
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. My sister used to shop that, and then I told her one day I went to her house, she lives a mile from me, and I had a printout, and I said, "You order 10 items, you return 8 of them, you keep two. Guess how many of those 8 will end up in India or somewhere in the landfill? Two. So around 20% or 20 something percent of everything that is returned ended up being thrown away. And you know what? Her behavior changed. She still orders, but not 10 now. She orders 3 and keeps 2.
Good, good. In
But
fact, Darko, I have one experience. I was there for one of the clients, and we went and visited their warehouse. There, I discovered, which was horrifying, that return packages they don't even make it to the shelf. Forget, putting on the dumpster, getting into the landfill is the it's not too many of those warehouses. They don't even put in enough effort to open those return boxes and bring it to the shelf, inspect them, and then put it on the shelf or put it in the landfill. They don't even put in that effort. So that's 8 of 8 go into the landfill because nobody even opened them.
it's cost more to open them, inspect them, put them back into the system than just to throw them. And that's
Yes.
the problem. And like you said, if the product is $10, I'm not gonna spend $12 on the dispositioning. What's gonna happen with it? I'm gonna
Yes.
throw it away. So that the fast fashion is a real growing problem. I agree with you,
Yeah.
and I cannot wait to see how we're gonna get rid of it. Like I'm all in. Like uh,
Let's see. Hopefully, we'll live long enough to see that change. Come
it
back from fast fashion to really sustainable and products that you use. I don't know if you did this, but in our families, we always passed. So like the elder brother would give to the younger brother, and then the cousin would get it.
yes, it's I think culture wise, so I'm from the Balkans, I'm from Macedonia. It's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
it's but here in the West, like Western Europe and the US and Canada, the culture is a little bit different. Like for example, here when something breaks, even a little bit, you buy a new thing. So it's also a cultural thing, but I think things are changing for better. I think the
Yes.
newer generation is much more aware, and I'm really happy to see it. I know we are running out of time, but
Yes.
me and you gonna talk about returns more because I think we
Uh
both
huh.
have great ideas. I can share some things that we have done to mitigate some of this. For example, we have done things like keep your return, so we don't want your return back. Or you know what, we if instead of returning it, if you do an exchange, we're gonna give you 20% discount,
Mm-hmm.
or things like that, that we're trying to really play the sustainability card because we care about the environment, and people are responding to it in a positive way.
Nice.
uh, the second thing that I wanted to tell you, what I think it's really interesting is, if you have the time, go and look it up statistics on returns per country, and you're gonna see that, the Pareto principle. 20% of the countries are responsible for 80, 89, 90% of the returns. So we know where the problem is, and that's how we need to target it, because we know where is it happening. How do we fix it now?
Yes, yes. So Darko, let's see, bring this episode, we close this episode with the promise that I'll come back to you where you will, make yourself available from your busy schedule for one more recording and we'll talk in detail. So again, thank you very much for your time today and I'm looking forward to next episode with you.
Anil, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk soon. Thank
Cool,
you.
man. See you. Thanks. Bye. That's it for this episode of the Customer-Centric Retailing Podcast. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast. Please rate and review and recommend to a friend or a fellow retail fanatic. This podcast is presented by Hotworks Commerce.